Good morning. Welcome to our December FAFSA webinar. We are excited to share information with you now about the actual FAFSA that's available. So came out a little bit earlier than we expected, but we are happy to have you all here on the line. And I'm going to cover just a few things first about the FAFSA data portal, and then Letha's going to take it over and walk you through a new presentation that she created that goes through all of the FAFSA information. And that presentation is on our website, so you'll be able to use that as well. So, whoops, okay. So here's just a few things we're going to talk about today, just a few bits of new information on the data portal, some of the questions that we've been receiving recently, and then a little bit about the new FAFSA. And then again, Letha will cover all of that for you. Okay, sorry, my clicker is going slow. So again, the FAFSA data portal, if you aren't already using it, this is a free tool that we offer here at the State Regents that will allow you to view your seniors and see what their FAFSA status is. You can find all the information on it on our okhighered.org website. You go to educators, and then under that, you'll see Oklahoma FAFSA data portal. When you click on that, you will see this screen, which will kind of walk you through the process of getting set up. And then all of the forms that we will need you to complete are on the right-hand side. So we talk about this FAFSA data portal in every one of our webinars. So if you haven't seen one, you can go to startwithfafsa.org, and we have a webinar tab at the top, and it will let you click in and look at some of the past webinars that we've done. Okay, this is what you'll see. And if you guys are already using the portal, hopefully you're looking at your new FAFSA information for your seniors. But this will show you your school name, the student name, their dates of birth, and then what their FAFSA status is. So hopefully most of them will say completed. If not, it may say incomplete, but it will tell you if they're missing a signature, a student signature, a parent signature. If they're missing something else more detailed, it may just say incomplete, but you won't see the reason for that. Only the college or career tech that the student put on their FAFSA will get that information. The student will also know if something is incomplete, so hopefully they will take care of that, but that will all be on the student side, so you won't need to worry about that. So then after you've submitted all the documents, you want to make sure you've set up an account on the FAFSA data portal. This is how you can get in to look at your student information. So to set up your account, you're going to go again to okhighered.org/FAFSA web. You'll hit register at the top, and then just enter a username and password. Your username is going to be your school email address. You'll make up your own password, then put in your name and the school that you're associated with, and then that will send me a message that says, hey, you're setting up your account, it needs to be unlocked, and I can do that for you, and then you will have access to all of your student information. Okay, so now we've had several questions this week, and I want to cover a few of those. So if you've already submitted all your documentation and you're looking at your FAFSA results, make sure when you go in that you're looking at the 25-26 student detail. I know it's confusing because it's your 24-25 seniors, but it's tied to the FAFSA year. So the FAFSA year will be 25-26. So I'll show you here in this next slide what it looks like. And, okay, so you're in here and click again. So you want to make sure it says 25-26 here at the top. And then as you are clicking the student detail, so student detail here, then you're going to get a drop-down box that will show you 25, 26. All the years will be shown here, but please make sure you're doing 25, 26 because that will show you your current seniors. Okay, I know that's confusing for everybody, but of course it's a FAFSA thing, so it's going to be confusing. So, and if you haven't already, please go ahead and send in your senior list because we are doing the matches and all the information is out there. To find the template and the instructions for doing the list submission, go to this website. Again, everything I've just shown you before, the okhighered.org, and then the FAFSA data portal link, and it will show you the template and the instructions that you need to use. Okay, so I've also had a lot of questions about what you do with the documentation that you're receiving. So if you are starting to get opt-out forms, you keep those at your school. None of your FAFSA results are going to be sent to the state regions, to the State Department of Education. You keep all of that at your school. And what the law says, it's to be kept under FERPA guidelines, just like you keep your ICAP information or your financial literacy documentation, just any of that, but that all stays at your school. Now, if a student gives you a copy of their email that came from federal student aid after they submitted their FAFSA, or a copy of their FAFSA submission summary, you can save that information as well, but all of that will stay with you at the school. So to find the opt-out form, here's the link to that. I know that's a long link to write down, and it's probably just easier if you go to statedepartmentofed.ok.gov and then go to their college and career page. And the opt-out form is at the very bottom of the screen. And you can print that off. You can do whatever you want to do with it. Here's the form, and it's a fillable form. So if you link this to your website or put this on your website, students and parents can complete the information just online. And then we've been told by the State Department of Ed that if a student or parent just types their name in the signature box, that will count as their official signature on this form. So just so you know that. You can also, you can also use this form, or you can make up your own form and use it that way. Next slide, please. Sorry. Okay. So yeah, like I was just saying, the form is fillable, so you can put it on your website. State Department says, I'm sorry, our screen's a little bit off there, that you can use this opt-out form, or you can make up your own if you want to. So it's really up to you. There aren't any real strict guidelines on that. And then at the end of the school year, if you want to, if you're using the portal, you can go in and look at your screen that has your high school, your student names and information, and then what their FAFSA results are. You can export that file to a CSV file or an Excel file and save it to your records and keep that with your opt-out forms. And that's really all you need to do to confirm all this information. So if you have any, here's the transcript wording in case you've forgotten what that is. Here it is, and this is going to go on all your transcripts at the end of the school year, or if you have students graduating in December, you want to make sure it's on there right now. So if you have any questions, we are happy to help with that. We also got a question about someone asking if we had a flyer or anything that you could use as a school to document, or I'm sorry, to share information about this FAFSA graduation requirement. We actually don't have that, but if you think that would be helpful to you, we can try to create something. So if you want to put in the in the chat maybe some things you would like to see on that form, we can try to create something and get it for you after the first of the year. So we'd be happy to do that. Okay, here's the link. If you have any questions as you're helping students complete a FAFSA, here's the hotline number to call. I know in the past it's kind of been a nightmare trying to get somebody to answer your call, but they've added a lot of new staff and they're hoping to cut the wait time down considerably so that if you have a question, you're not just on hold for hours at a time. And this will show you the hours that it will be in service. They are doing some extra hours on Saturdays now, and that will probably go through at least the end of June. So if you think your school has maybe started the FAFSA data portal process, but you're not sure if everything's complete or if you've submitted your senior list, please reach out to me and let me know, and I'll be happy to look that up for you and provide as much information as we can about this. We want to make sure you're all set up and ready to go, and if we can help, please reach out. Okay, that's it for me, and I will pass it on to Lisa.
Thank you, Kelly. I know that just watching Kelly's piles grow of all the people that are responding to the FAFSA data portal, it's really exciting, all the schools that are getting on board with that. And I think it'll be a great tool for everybody. What I'm about to show you now is our new FAFSA Fundamentals PowerPoint. You can find it at youcango2.org in the Educator Tools section. I have shortened the PowerPoint just a little bit. It's a little bit longer than the versions we've been using recently because it contains more actual screenshots. So I'm skipping some of the preliminary introductory stuff and going to the meat that I think the counselors will want to hear about. We have designed this for students, and so you're going to see the wording "you" throughout the PowerPoint, meaning that voice is for the students. But of course, you'll, with your bright minds, you can switch it over to yourselves. Okay. So first of all, I just want to go ahead and update everybody on what's going on with those electronic signatures, the new studentaid.gov accounts. Every student is going to need to do one if they're doing an online FAFSA. So we're saying that that needs to be done soon if they don't have them already. It'll serve as their signature. They create their own username and password. And then once that's created, they can use that signature each year as they renew their FAFSA. They can also use that at other federal student aid websites, such as the student loan part where they can sign master promissory notes and all of that. So just one signature, and then they can reuse that each time. The same is true for parents. They can use the same signature on one sibling's FAFSA that they use on another sibling's FAFSA, or even their own FAFSA if they need to. All righty. Every student doing an online FAFSA will need an account at studentaid.gov. You may recall this is still called the FSA ID in some places, but we're trying to transition over to the new studentaid.gov account phrasing. And then for a dependent student, which most high school seniors are going to be dependent, then one or both parents will also need to create their own account at studentaid.gov. Now, here are some guidelines on which parents need to create those accounts. If the student is being supported by parents who are married and filing jointly, and they were married in 2023 to each other and filed married filing jointly, then only one parent needs to create an account. Now, some of you may have been in a little bit of a mess last year when, even though there was only one tax return, the FAFSA was asking for a second parent's information. They think they have all that sorted out. It should just be one parent required to create that account. But if those parents are together now and they didn't file jointly for any reason in 2023, you can see 3 different examples here, then both parents, each one of those parents will need to create their own studentaid.gov account. Think of it as the number of tax returns that are going to be transferred to the FAFSA. If they filed their tax returns separately in 2023, they'll each need to accept the terms and give permission to have those IRS tax returns transmitted over to the FAFSA. If parents are divorced or separated, for those of you who have been in the FAFSA business for a while, you'll know that it wasn't too long ago that there were some guidelines that changed on this. The current rule is that if the parents are divorced or separated and not living together, the not living together part is very important. Then the student is asked to use the information for the parent who gave the most financial support to that student in the last 12 months. Now, if that parent has remarried, then the step parent will also need to contribute their information on the FAFSA. And it's all going to, once again, depend on what was it like in 2023? What was the marital status in 2023? Now, there is a new tool available from studentaid.gov, and I've put the link here at the bottom of this screen, but it's a standalone tool. Last year, the parent wizard was added to the online FAFSA, where the wizard would ask about the circumstances with the parents, and it would help that student determine which parent or parents needed to create and contribute to the account, to that FAFSA. But now you can click on this link and go right to a standalone tool that is not inside the FAFSA, and a student can work through this in advance just to make sure they know who needs to sign as a contributor on their form. We also have some tools that you can use at youcango2.org to see whether that student could be considered a dependent or an independent student. As I mentioned earlier, most seniors will be dependent, but there are several questions here that it asks. And if a student answers yes to any of these dependency questions, just one of them is all it takes, then that student would be then considered independent and would not have to submit their parents' information. A couple examples I'd like to point out here are, one of the questions is, are you in a legal guardianship? If that student has a legal guardian registered in a court of law or a tribal court in Oklahoma, their state of residence, then that would make them an independent student, and they would not be required to submit their parents' or their legal guardian's information. Another one is foster care. There's a question about whether they've been in foster care. If it's within those timeframes, then yes, that would make them an independent student as well. And then there's a question about being homeless, which is going to be, I'm going to bring out a little bit more information about that in a second. Also to the right, you see a flow chart that helps you go visibly through that process of deciding which parent or parents need to contribute to that student's FAFSA. So those are both available in the publications section at youcango2.org. There are a couple of people in the chat that are monitoring questions. I just wanted you to know that, and we'll make sure and get to everything throughout the presentation. All right, when the student is asked about the personal identifying information that they're going to be using on their account, when they're applying for that new account, they put in their full legal name, their birth date, their social security number, and their email address. This information needs to be shared with the parents exactly the way the student entered it in for their username and password. That needs to be shared with their parents, and vice versa. Parents need to share with their students the name, birth date, social security number, and email address, because there will be a time in the FAFSA where that has to be entered and it all has to match up. If that student hasn't put in the parent's name correctly or any one of those details, or if the student hasn't used the correct info, or the parent hasn't used the correct information for the student, then there's going to be a problem. It won't match them up and the parent won't be able to complete their information. So make sure you share exactly how you used it when you opened up your student aid account, .gov account. Otherwise, you'll need to make some corrections before you can continue with the FAFSA. Once they get into studentaid.gov, they can either click on Create Account up at the top, or sometimes it will be in a banner that you see, the blue-green banner here. Sometimes it will appear there. Studentaid.gov is a big website, and so it also talks a lot about loans and other things. So one of the best ways to log in to do your new username and password is go to Create Account up there at the top right corner. Here are some tips in setting up those new accounts. They need to use a personal email account, not a business or a school. It's something they will be able to be contacted at after school ends. Don't ever share your username or password with anyone, not even your parents. It's okay to share that social security number, birth date, etc., because you have to put that into the FAFSA when it's your turn. But please don't share your username and password. And don't ever include your birth date. That's just a given on any password. Now, for parents who are starting their new account and they're getting it ready, there is an option down toward the bottom that says, what if I don't have a social security number? They will click on that and it will tell them how to go from there. Each year, they seem to be putting more and more emphasis on homeless students and how to handle different situations. So if a student is not currently living with a parent or a legal guardian, and they're considered to be homeless, which would mean be unaccompanied and homeless, or self-supporting and at risk of being homeless, if that applies to some of your students, then it's important that they know they can use someone else's address temporarily until their circumstances change. So they can use a mailing address of an adult relative or a friend, or they can use an address at one of the college offices. Sometimes that's the financial aid office. But you always want to ask permission first before you put someone else's address on, mainly because they need to know they could be receiving mail for you there. When you open up your account, you have to provide a unique email address. It cannot, a student's email address cannot be the same as either of the parents' email address. Each account needs its own unique address. Once you enter that, there's different ways to do this. Everybody has to have an email address on their account. That's required. Cell phone numbers are also very good ways to link up with your account. We have had a lot of reports about people putting in their cell phone number and they will get a message saying your number is associated with another account. And of course, through the years, we've learned that these numbers are reused when someone cancels their line. Sometimes that same number is issued to someone else. If you come across this situation when your students are setting up their accounts, the National College Access or Attainment Network is suggesting that we just not put the cell phone number in. If you get that kind of message saying it's already been associated with another account, then just take that out of there and use your email only. They realize it's not as secure that way, but that's how they're working around it temporarily until they can resolve more. Let's just say they send you verify your email first. They'll send a code to that email address and the student enters it down where it says verified, and the same thing with the cell phone number. They'll verify that one up above. Now, there's also an option to install an authenticator app. It's not a requirement at all, but if that student wishes to, there's a blue link right there at the bottom of this page, this two-step verification page where they can download their own application if they wish. Let's say that we're all done with that application. They've got their user account set up. And on the last screen, there will be a box that appears that gives them a backup code. It's one of those that looks like a squirrel ran across the keyboard. It's all going to be capital letters and numbers. But the student needs to take a picture of this screen or record the backup code somehow, because if they're not able to get into their FAFSA or to studentaid.gov later on for some reason, this is that one-time use backup code that they can use to access their account. Now, the hotline for the Federal Student Aid Help Center is here in this blue-green box, 1-800-4FED-AID, or for those of you who would rather just have numbers, 1-800-433-3243. They've added more than 700 extra people on the FAFSA at the FAFSA Help Center this year. Last year was terrible for drop calls, but they have a lot more employees there now answering those phones. We are telling people to try to get those accounts set up at least 2 weeks before they start their FAFSA. Things have sped up again. Things are running smoother than they were last year. And they're saying now that it can take from 2 to 3 days unless it's a weekend. to get all of that verification back that everything's been matched with the Social Security Administration. But we say at least a week before, maybe two, just to be safe. All of that's going to go through a match. And if something doesn't match, whoever that contributor is, either the student or the parent, will get a message saying that it didn't match for some reason. And so until all those matches are complete, and it's the word they use at FAFSA.gov is enabled. Once that is enabled, that account, then you know that it's matched and everything's been verified. But until it's all done, they won't be able to completely submit the FAFSA because there still won't be a signature that's been verified. Just remember, both parents may need an ID, or it used to be called FSA ID. They both may need that. They shouldn't need it if they are married filing jointly, and they were in 2023. There were problems where last year where a student was told that the other parent's information was also required. If they come across anything like that, it won't hurt at all for that other parent to go ahead and create an account at studentaid.gov just to get all of the ducks in a row. I have not heard of that happening yet this year, but it was a problem last year. A little bit of an update on parents without Social Security numbers. They can create their own studentaid.gov account, the username and password. And since there won't be a Social Security number that has to go through that match with the Social Security Administration, then they can create their studentaid.gov account that day and immediately start the student's FAFSA later. I do want to address a couple of rumors that have been flying around. We were told last week that there was really no guarantee on how the data would be treated that is submitted through the application for the new account. Right now and up through October, there's a document in place that is saying those parents' information cannot be used for anything except to determine the student's eligibility for financial aid. And so the only administration that's been seeing the data from these undocumented parents has been federal student aid. They released notices last week that there is no guarantee that is going to stay the same through the next administration. And so it kind of sent us all into a whirlwind on what to do to speak to this issue when we're with counselors and parents and students. So we're leaving that up to you on how you want to address that. We can't guarantee that data won't be released going forward after October. Then last week, late in the week, we got a message from the U.S. Department of Education. Remember, that's the FAFSA people. And they announced that they're closing the ID verification at ed.gov address. That address is where people who do not have Social Security numbers were asked to send different documents to prove their identity. And as of now, that account is no longer open. They are not requiring undocumented parents to send in any further verification of their identity. So we're kind of hearing things from both sides. It's not a settled issue yet, but I wanted you to be aware that is out there. The parents no longer have to send in any more documents to prove their identity. All right, moving on. Should I pause? I know there's been several chat remarks. Is there anything I need to address?
I think we're good. We've answered all the questions up to this point. So
okay,
we're good to go.
Sounds great. All righty. I'll try to speed through this. I know we all have precious time that we're using. Remind your students that they do not need any punctuation on their FAFSA. The decimals are there. They'll round their dollar amounts to a zero. There's no decimal to put a number after. The only time that there's going to be an exception on this punctuation rule is that if there is a hyphen on the Social Security card or on the permanent resident card, they'll need to put that hyphen in there as well. Make sure to save the application frequently. There's a little save button at the top of the screen that they can use multiple times to make sure they don't lose anything with the glitch. And then you always want to use the previous and continue buttons that are going to appear at the bottom of each page of the FAFSA. If you use your browser button, the back button up in the top of your screen, that could kick a student completely or a parent completely out of the application, and they may have to restart it. To start their FAFSA, they go to fafsa.gov. And then they want to make sure that they're selecting the 2526 FAFSA form. Now, while I'm still here, I'll show you that the parent later on, after the parent is invited to the student's FAFSA, they'll click on that right button because it's not only to edit a form, but it's also to accept an invitation. Make sure the student chooses the 2526 FAFSA. They'll log in with their username and their password. Now, if they have not created that yet, they can go down to create an account. But remember, it's all got to be matched with Social Security first. So chances are that they won't be able to complete their FAFSA the same day that they create their account. This is what the screen looks like when the student logs in. Of course, if they're doing their portion of the form, Brenda is a student and she will mark that she is, and it'll start. Now there's onboarding videos that are great to watch. Many people skip these, but there's different types of information available for parents and students to see. I want you to see the third video. Above it, there's a blue highlighted box that talks about how every contributor must provide consent and approval for that student to be eligible for federal student aid. And with that approval, they can obtain the federal tax information from that student's 2023 tax return, as well as the parents. Anyone who is going to sign and submit an online FAFSA has to agree to those terms. So I wanted to point that out. Once all that information's been put in on the new account, that's going to show up on the FAFSA as they start their FAFSA. And if they need to change anything, they can update their account settings. You'll see account settings in a light blue link at the bottom of this box that's showing up here. They can go there to change different parts of their information. But to change a mailing address, they can just do that directly on this screen that you see here. I want to point out this is going to appear very early in the FAFSA. Once again, there's a paragraph. It's in a different color. It's green here. And it explains again that the 2023 tax return needs to automatically be transferred from the IRS to the FAFSA. And it explains all of that to the student and the parent. And then once they've read all of that language, then they click approve. And that's giving their consent to have that data transferred. If there's any contributor that does not choose approve, if they don't agree to that, the FAFSA can't be processed. It won't be processed. And then the student won't be eligible for most types of federal student aid. There is one type of loan that they may be able to get. Now, at a time like this, it's always important to say that if there are some exceptions, if there's some unusual circumstance that would keep that person from signing, then it's possible it could be appealed with the financial aid office at the school that the student is planning to attend. The student then goes into these questions about personal circumstances, and this is where these used to be called the dependency questions. This is where the FAFSA determines whether a student will be independent or dependent on the FAFSA. Next, they'll see a screen that asks about their current enrollment status or their current level of school. And this is where we're always very careful to say, if your students have advanced placement credits or concurrent enrollment credits, they are still going to be a first-year freshman on the FAFSA because all of those credits that they're walking in with were earned before they enrolled in college. There's also a list of student personal circumstances here. For most high school seniors, they're not going to answer any of these as applying to them. And so this with the typical dependent student says none of these apply. That's what they would mark if none of those questions apply to them. One other thing a couple other things that makes a student dependent or independent that I had not mentioned yet is that they had been awarded the court any time since they turned 13, or in foster care anytime since they turned 13, an emancipated minor, and then we already talked about the legal guardianship issue. Now, if that student has been unaccompanied, which means a parent or legal guardian is not with them, and they've been homeless or at risk of being homeless anytime since July 1st, 2024, the student will answer yes to the homeless question. That right there would make them an independent student, and they would not be required to use parent or guardian's information. Now there is also a list of unusual circumstances. These I always classify as extreme circumstances. If for some reason that student's not able to get their parents' information for some reason, then they may have one of these situations that would apply to them. They left home because of abuse, they were abandoned or estranged and haven't been adopted. They've been granted refugee or asylee status, and I've actually worked with a couple students very recently who had applied for asylee status and one who had that status already. If they've been a victim of human trafficking, they've been incarcerated, or their parents are incarcerated, and it's a risk to that student to contact them. Or even if a parent has just disappeared and that student is not able to contact them. Those are all considered unusual circumstances, and they would mark yes if any of those applied to them. Sometimes, even after all these questions are answered, the student is still considered dependent, but the parent doesn't always want to cooperate with giving their information on the FAFSA. So if you saw this screen last year, they've changed some wording on this. Where the circle is in red, it asks the question, are the student's parents refusing to provide their information on this FAFSA form? If they do refuse it, then that student would mark yes. And they would then appeal with the financial aid office after that FAFSA has been processed and sent off to the different schools. Then they would ask what they could do next to see if they could have their dependency status switched to an independent status. The students then tell about the parents, and this goes to the place where I was talking about earlier, that student and parent must have the exact way that each of those people put in the information on their new account when they opened their new studentaid.gov account. In this screen, the student has gone through all of the parent wizard questions, and the FAFSA has determined that they will need both information for both of the parents on their FAFSA. So that's a very helpful tool on there. Oh, excuse me. Once again, there's the standalone parent wizard at studentaid.gov FAFSA-apply/parents. Here is the part where the student is going to invite the parents to the form. The student has finished up their portion just about, and so they fill in all that information from the parent. In this case, we've got parent spouse, which is optional because her parents are married and filing jointly, but you can always put that other parent in if you want. Make sure to fill that all in. And then there are going to be some general questions about gender, race, and ethnicity. Each of those questions must be answered, but one of the options to answer the question is prefer not to answer. So as long as they have a prefer not to answer, that question is answered and they can continue. This is one question that cannot be opted out of, and that is the student's citizenship status, not the parents, but the students. And so a student has to be either a U.S. citizen, a U.S. national, or an eligible non-resident. And those are going to be some of the people that we've seen in another question, the asylee status, different things like that. So this student has selected U.S. citizen or national, and so they will be eligible for federal financial aid. There is a fallen heroes question as well. If you have a parent who was killed in the line of duty, whether while they were serving on active duty as a member of the armed forces on or after the events of 9/11, or performing official duties as a public safety officer, then they would answer yes to that. If they do answer yes to that, that will make them eligible for the full allowable Pell Grant amount, which right now is $7,395 for this current year. We do not know the full Pell Award for next year, for 25-26. Students need to be reminded that even if they didn't report income taxes, didn't file a tax return in 2023, they will still be required to put what their earned income was in that year. And so they'll be entering a lot of that information manually if they did not file a tax return. Everyone who did not file tax returns that is contributing to the FAFSA still needs to click that accept button, agreeing to the transfer of the tax information. The IRS will then report to federal student aid that there is no transcript available, that they did not file, and that will complete the process. The dependent students are going to be asked these questions about their assets, investments, et cetera. Now, we know that most high school seniors aren't going to have the investments and the investment farms, but they do need to know the total of their cash, savings, and checking accounts. They don't have to list them separately. They just have to know that total or an estimate if they aren't sure of the exact amount. The students will be able to select up to 20 colleges to put on their FAFSA, and there's some great tools here to help them search for that by city and state or by school name. Now you'll notice that where it says search by school name down under the green box, there's also search by school code. If a student has a lot of colleges that they want to put on their FAFSA, they may want to search for the school codes first and then have them ready to enter very quickly into their FAFSA. When the student's done putting in all their information, they will have this review page. They can click on each white box, such as personal identifiers, to see just that section, or they can click the expand all button to see everything that they've put into that FAFSA. Also, at this point, they'll be able to see what their status is with the different contributors for the FAFSA. You'll see that down in this bottom box, Mark Price is a contributor to this FAFSA. He's a parent, and the invitation has been sent to that parent for him to open up that FAFSA and get started on it. Here we are at the end of the student section. Remember, this is just the student. There's still a parent usually that needs to participate as well. That student needs to check the sign your FAFSA form box down below on the second page, that they agree to the terms, and then they must click sign. Now this screen that they'll see, if the parent still needs to contribute information, they'll see this screen that says you're almost there. The student section is complete, and it will advise that student someone else still needs to contribute their information. The parents will receive an email that looks something like this. And at that point, they can click on Get Started at the bottom of that first page and get linked into that student's FAFSA, or there's another place that they can use, get in there, and that is going to be from, if they log in to FAFSA.gov and they click that option that I showed you earlier where it says edit a 24 or 25 form or accept invitation, they can go in that way and start it as well. And okay, I got ahead of myself. Here's that screenshot, accept an invitation. And they are editing that form because it was just set up by the student. They'll need their own user ID and password, not their students. And they will, of course, log in as a parent rather than a student. And when they're all finished with their information and they're the last contributor, then they'll get this message at the end that says, congratulations, the FAFSA form is complete. And the email will be sent to the student advising everything. And then we'll talk just a little bit about what happens after that FAFSA gets sent in. The student will receive the FAFSA submission summary. Remember, the FAFSA is the property of the student, and so the student receives the communication for that. There are a couple numbers that are circled here, or one number that's circled. The data release number can be important if a financial aid advisor needs to go into the student's FAFSA to change a figure. Well, sometimes it's justifiable for one of the officers in that department to go in and maybe decrease the income level if the student is now earning less money than they were in 2023, or a family member is earning less. That data release number is their key to get into that student's FAFSA, since they are not allowed to use the student's username and password. A student can also print this summary by clicking on that blue link at the top to print it out. And many scholarship agencies will want to see this summary, so it's a good idea to have a copy of it on hand. There's also going to be the all-important student aid index number listed on the summary. You'll see that this SAI is a negative 355. It can be anywhere from a minus 1,500 to multiple nines, 6 nines to be exact. This SAI is used by financial aid offices to help them know what they can offer that student in financial aid. With this SAI at a negative number, that means this student is going to qualify for the full Pell Grant award for whatever that amount is next year. Pardon me. Anything from negative 1,500 to a 0 is going to be the full Pell amount. And then as that SAI number increases, their eligibility for the free need-based aid may decrease depending on how that number is. I sort of alluded to this earlier. If a family has experienced any loss of income since 2023 for any of these reasons you see listed here, or for any other reasons you've heard about, the student can appeal to the financial aid office and show them their current situation, what the income is currently, and if that office determines that it would benefit the student to lower that income level and make them more eligible for the need-based free money, the grants, and then they can do that, but it has to be someone at the college in the financial aid department that it makes that adjustment. So if it's adjusted, that student needs that DRN, data release number, that I showed you earlier. The student will then start getting award letters from different colleges that they have put on their FAFSA. This is a great way to compare colleges. We all know that the bottom line for most students is, how much do I have to pay? And so they can compare these offers. If they have 20 different colleges on their FAFSA, chances are they're not going to get 20 different financial aid offers. Some of them may need to contact a college and ask them, would you send it to me, or have you received my data? Whatever they need to do to get the ball rolling. It'll show the total cost of attendance at that school for 1 year of college. And then this letter will also show the different types of aid that are already in the works that they are offering this student to help them pay for college. Now, sometimes there is going to be a gap. Sometimes that cost of attendance will be larger than all of the aid that they're offering. And so that's when the student really needs to investigate scholarships. If they don't have work study on their award offer, they may want to ask about a work study job where they work part-time, and the money that they earn at that job is then transferred to their, paid to their account to help them avoid a lot of student loans. We always make sure that students know that they need to either confirm or decline any of the aid that they're offered by a deadline that will be imposed by the school. And we always encourage them to not take out student loans if they don't have to. But if they do need to borrow, they need to look at the other forms of aid that are being offered to them first and see how much loan money they think they can get by with without borrowing the full amount. Oops, okay. I did this rather quickly this morning, and I think that was the end of my presentation. So does anybody have a question or anything that they wanted to address? Sorry. I see that I was muted there.
Sorry, I did that.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
Anything in the chat?
Yeah, any questions, please share, and we're happy to help with anything.
I'll remind everyone that our team, the outreach team, does go out to schools, community centers, wherever you need us, to talk about the FAFSA, and we will do a workshop with you to help your students and parents get through the FAFSA. Those have been going very well this year. We've been pretty pleased with our results on those. So let me just go ahead and give you our email address. It's you, letter U, can go, number, with the number 2, you can go to.org. No, I'm doing that wrong. You can go to at ocap.org. OCAP as in Paul.org. You can go to at ocap.org. Let us know if you need a presentation or a workshop or a Zoom meeting. We'll meet with you however is the best. And everything that we do here is free of charge. Make sure to look at our website, youcango2.org, for all the publications we have that you can download and print. And we're happy to help however we can.
And yeah, the PowerPoint that Letha just went over, FAFSA Fundamentals, is on the You Can Go To website. So you're free to use that. She's included speaker notes. So if you want to provide this information to your students, you have everything right there at your fingertips, or you can direct your students and parents to go through the PowerPoint themselves. So it's a very helpful tool.
We want to wish everybody happy holidays. Hope you have a very Merry Christmas and all the other things that go along with that time of year. And we just appreciate counselors and school staff so much because we know you're in the trenches every day, and we would like to help however we can. So you're our superheroes, is what you are. So we appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much. We will let you get back to your day then. So we'll hopefully get this presentation posted on our website sometime in the first of the year. So we'll have it out there. But anyway, thank you for joining us. And again, like Letha said, happy holidays, and everyone be safe. Bye-bye.
Everybody, bye.